Okay, this is a video on how to make a circular reference. This is the first video, and it's I want to use a very relatively simple example that demonstrates the points. Once you get this example, then you can see how everything else works. Let me make sure the volume's turned up. Okay, and here's what prompted this. My friend in France, Stephanie, she suggested making these videos, and not making the videos, suggested coming up with a solution to the circular reference problem. So I have to give her a lot of credit. She's in Lille, and yes, just an excellent modeler. So you know what I'm going to do this time? I'm going to start, unlike all the others, I'm going to start completely from scratch. Control N. Let's make a new sheet. Let's press F12 and rename this sheet, and I'm going to put it in so you can see how I make the exercises. I'm going to put it in I'll put it in our project finance exercises, and I'll call this why don't I call this circular reference exercise 1, which is the fee exercise. And so what I'm trying to do is come up, and I'm going to save this as a macro-enabled workbook. And I'm trying to come up with the simplest possible example of a model. Now if we're just starting a model, let's make the first 3 columns small, the next one wide, and let's put some construction oh, come on. It's early in the morning. The last thing, the really thing, I just wanted to get up and decide, let's make a video about circular references. What's the best thing you could do in the morning like this? My dog's laying here next to me. Construction expenditures. Okay, and now why don't we make a few construction? Let's make it a little bit different. Let's make it 250 and 150. I don't know why. This is not like an S-curve right now, obviously. Let's make that's one of our inputs. How about another input? Let's put here's what we should do. I'm going to leave this here. This is so silly, but I get anal about some of this stuff. Come on. Oh, I switched it to French again here. That's why. Let's make this our assumptions and put our operating assumptions first. Okay, and why don't we make this one bold, and then why don't we make some financing assumptions? And why don't we first put the debt to capital ratio? So we're going to target a debt to capital ratio, let's say, of 60%. And then why don't we put the key thing, and let's say that I'm the banker, you're the client. I'm going to put a fee percent. And let's make our fee percent only 30%. What a bargain. Now, if I'm the banker and you're the client, Stephanie's the client, and I say, I'm going to make you a loan of 100. And you say, okay. Stephanie says, fine, I'll take the loan of 100. Then I say I have to charge you a fee of 30%. And then she says, fine, just make the loan 130. And then, of course, I can't do the arithmetic now. Now the fee is 30% of 130, and the loan has to be bigger. But then after the loan is bigger, the fee is bigger. And then after the fee is bigger, the loan is bigger. Blah, blah, blah. That's the circular reference. That's what we're going to work on. And let's make one other thing. Let's put the target debt level. And for that, we're going to need a goal seek. So I don't know what this is going to be. If this is, if we have down here 500, so let's say we, 6 times, let's say it's 350. That's our target debt level. Okay. Now let's make our sources and uses of funds. Do you mind if we quickly make our little macro? So color inputs, Shift Control C, F5, paste, not special, go to constants, take out the text, shades everything. Let's put in the fill colors. How about let's put a really light thing in the fill colors. And yeah, that's not light enough. And in the other colors, how about we put it blue? That's, I was told by accountants that's what you're supposed to do. Get worried all about colors. I think that's a really big issue, getting those colors right, don't you? How about this one? And then let's put a box around there. Ooh, that's too big of a box. Let's put this box around. Is that all right? Or how about this box? Okay, now we stop recording the macro. All right, I'm going to make one. Shh! I'm recording a video. We'll make one more a little macro. Let's make a reset macro. So I'm going to call this reset colors. Shift Control R, and then we press this and we say okay, let's first take out all our borders. Let's make this no fill, and let's set that to automatic and stop recording the macro. So here's what I do. Shift Control C, that's what I'm pressing. Shift Control R, Shift Control C, Shift Control R. That's how we can just put our colors in after the fact. I'm sure you can, there are all sorts of other things you can do with your little macros. Now let's put the uses of funds. And for the uses of funds, we have our construction, and then we also have our fees, because, and then we'll get a total. And why don't I, that's why I did this whole silly little thing over here. So I'm going to put a total. And, you know, here's what I'm going to do. Shift Control right arrow, Shift Control right arrow, Shift alternate right arrow, and number 1. Let's close off the sheet. It's a very little file. Our construction comes from our inputs. F4 a couple of times. Shift. Oops. And then our fees are, let's make the fees now. This is going to be the trick. I'm not saying this is how anything really works. This is, of course, the fees are actually commitment fees, upfront fees, and God knows how many other fees. And now but the fees are going to be a percentage of the debt. So when we get our fees, we're going to take the debt down here and multiply that by the fee percentage. All right. I think I'm going to press the F4 key on that one. Yeah, well, obviously I should. Okay, let's format these. Shift Control 1. alternate equal to sum them, and we have our total uses of funds. So far so good. Now here's the circular reference. It should be obvious to you, because if I make the debt the total, if I made the debt the construction as a percentage of the debt to capital, there's no problem. But if I make the debt the total uses of funds as a percentage of the as a percentage of the capital, you know what I mean, then we'll have a circular reference problem. So let's do that. Okay, and let's put the debt to capital ratio here, multiply this here. And then we go, oh, I'm not supposed to swear, so we just go shoot. I don't see what's wrong with swearing when you have a circular reference. So then that gives you the problem. Well, why don't we finish up this example? Equity is the total minus the debt. Obviously, if we don't do anything about the circular reference, we have a big problem. And then alternate equal again, and then we'll put the total. So far the model is a mess. Now I'm going to do this one more time. I did this last time too. Okay, well, why don't I delete this, and why don't we call this method? Okay, let's call this method what should I put here? This is going to screw up all the colors, by the way. Let's make it this one, and that one, I don't know. You young people are so much better at this than me. Let's make this the iteration method. Okay, and in the iteration method, we're going to, where should I put this? Maybe I shouldn't have, if I press number 2 over here, it'll open the sheet. Maybe I shouldn't have closed the sheet up, but let's iteration method, go to options, from the file menu. Is that okay to say it like that? And click the iteration button. I've already wasted 12 minutes of your time. Excuse me for this. This is so simple. They go to formulas, enable the iterations over here, and then we press OK. And everything's working. And we can do a little test. I don't know, this is a silly test. These things equal. Whoops, why didn't I say equal? Okay. And so forth. Okay, and our total debt is, let's insert another line. And what I like to do very, very often when we total something, and I know it's going to be just one line across, I'm sure some fancy Excel person is going to say that's wrong to do it like that, but we want to be as lazy as possible. So that's our total debt. We want the actual debt level to be 350 instead of that, so we can put our target debt down here. Okay, maybe I should press the F4 button. Okay, and then we'll have a difference, which means we'd like to make a goal seek. Now in another video I'm going to show you, or somewhere I'm going to show you how to automate the goal seek, so you don't have to use the goal seek. You can make a function for the goal seek. I think that's really exciting. Now here's the problem with all of this. Watch this not work. If I would, let's delete one line. If I delete this line, oops, I didn't want to delete that one. Oh, I wanted to put an A in this line. We get a value. And now I'm going to go up here. I'm pressing the undo key, and I get another value. And apparently I'm not supposed to swear in these videos, but that's what you would do. Now this is an easy one. Okay, we can copy. But if it's a real model, it messes everything up. I've said that in the other videos, and I've done this over and over again. Now the second thing, I'm going to have to save this. The second thing is going to be a worse problem. If I want to start doing goal seeks and probably a whole host of other functions and things in Excel, I want to make this to be 0 by, let's say, changing the debt to capital ratio. Okay, sounds like a reasonable thing to do. Go to data, what if analysis, goal seek. Let's set the difference to be a value of 0 by changing the debt to capital ratio. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Because I know this is not going to work, I'm going to go to options, and in the formulas, I have this big, really thing up here. I think it's the bottom one that really drives this, so I'm not going to make it that accurate. That means it won't go around quite as much. What if I make it really like this? What happens there? Let's see what happens there. So let's make the goal seek. Okay, so we go to data, what if analysis, goal seek, and you could make a macro that adjusts those goal seeks, so you kind of try it out once to make sure it works and then redo the goal seek. So let's set that to a value of 0 by changing the debt to capital ratio to a circular reference, and it kind of goes crazy. It's going around, and then, oops, it gave me some ridiculous number. It obviously just didn't work. Minus 2, whatever, hundreds, whatever that is. Okay? That didn't work. Let's put the 60% back in here. Okay, and that left, what a mess that left. Why did that even leave it? And the debt now is 0? What's going on here? Okay, maybe it's because I put the iterations. It says calculate here. It's not really working. Why don't I go back to the options? I hope that this tiny little example with, this is about the simplest example I can come up with. Or did I make a mistake here? This is, oh no, you should have told me. Of course I made a mistake. Oh, control right there. Whoops. Okay. Oh God. This one times the F4. Okay. Alright. So I could have done the goal seek. You can see the problems. So the iteration method, if we I hate this. Okay, the iteration this method has many problems and should almost never be used in a serious model. Okay, here, 1, the model is completely unstable. Unstable. 2, goal seeks and other important functions do not work. Okay. I think one function that might work, by the way, here, why don't I make a little macro comments. I'll call this Shift Control M. Okay, and then we're going to hide the comments. So whenever I press Shift Control M, that will hide the comments. Next time I show them, I'm going to press Shift Control. Some other Shift Control. Okay, so let's make the second method. here's what I hope we can do. Oh, I was going to show you one other thing. So let's make a data table, and let's say we put, I don't know, 30% debt, 40%, 50%, and let's look at the debt level that we got, the total debt, and then make our data table. Data, what if analysis, data table, column input as the debt to capital ratio. Press F, whoops. Oh no, oh, excuse me, I can't use the F9 key with this recording, so I have to go to formulas, calculation options, automatic. That data table still does work, okay? Now what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to switch the iteration button off for a while. I think that's really, and when I do that, I'm going to leave the circular reference in. Okay, so hopefully will it show our little, problems. Okay, now I'm going to copy this iteration method. Let's copy this to the next method. Why don't we make this the goal seek method? Okay, and for the goal seek method, what we can do this a few different ways. We need to have a target. So what we'll do is we'll do the kind of classic thing. Let's put fixed debt, computed debt and difference. And the fixed debt, let's just say 70 in all the periods. Oh, you know, why don't we do it with the fees? Fixed fees, computed fees and difference. That's really what it should be. It's 20. Okay. And then the computed fees are the debt multiplied by our fee percentage, our bargain fee percentage, only 30%. Whoops. Shoot. And then the difference is this minus this. Okay, and since we have a circular reference and everything's messing up, but what you want to do is put a fixed number in for the fees. Okay, and then we have a difference. Now, to get this difference to be 0, we can just make a goal seek. We can just go to home, data, what if analysis, goal seek. Let's set that difference to 0 by changing the fixed amount, right? Is that okay? And then we have our answer. Now the problem is we'd have to do that each and every time. So I'm going to make this goal seek / solver method. Okay, the goal seek wouldn't work obviously because we'd have to redo the goal seek. We could put a macro around the goal seek, which I used to do. I can't believe I used to do that. What a waste. And, but the solver, whenever we have multiple goal seeks, you just, in your brain, you should say, oh, then we use the solver. When you use the solver, take this crap out of the top and just change we can change a whole lot of cells instead of one cell. And we can add a constraint, and the constraint is that the difference here is equal to 0. Press OK, and I can't see this, and I'll press solve, and ooh, it solved the solution, and that all looks good. Here's the problem. When I would make our, let's take this as the debt. I hope this worked, okay. When I go, and I'll I'm going to make sure our formulas are still automatic. Of course, the data table doesn't work. And if I would make the goal seek, I could do this, but I'd have to make the goal seek a part of the solver. What a horrible pain. You know, I'd have to go to the data, and I'd have to go to the solver, and then I'd have to add another changing cell. Let's change also the, I don't even want to do this. Do I have to do this? Debt to capital. Oh, I just messed it up, so I'm not going to do it even. All right? You could put another thing in. So in this case, you know, and let me make another macro. This time I'm going to put show comments. And if you remember, I think the other one was Shift Control M. Let's make this Shift Control N. And go to review, show the comment. And let's talk about the problem with this one. The problem with this one is so what we did here is make a solver like multiple goal seeks after writing an equation for the fixed fees. This or any equation that is creating the circular reference. Okay, this does have many problems as well. Am I still recording the macro? I hope I switched the macro off. Oh, shoot if I didn't. And then, well, let me see. Did I? Oh, no. Whenever you do this, you know, maybe I'm getting too old for this. Let's go to this workbook, show comments, edit, and get rid of all this application. Everything else is gone. Sorry about that. Okay. This method has many problems and also should be never used in a serious model. One, that I didn't tell you this, the solver is very, very, very slow in a big real model. Two, the solver can only be used on one page. Okay, three, the things like the data table, like data tables and sensitivity analysis do not work. Oh, what? Come on, what happened here? That was bizarre. And how about four? The goal seek does not work unless what you make a painful addition to the solver. That's enough problems with that one. I hope I've convinced you that so far we have two very inadequate solutions. So why don't we, oops, Control N. Oh no. Shift Control N doesn't Shift Control N, that takes away the comment. Phew, that works. So now let's do the next very famous one that apparently I called bullshit before. And I think this is the worst one almost. The next one, but this is the one that's used more than anything else, and this is this famous copy and paste method. And, you know, people who use this copy and paste method think they're really fancy, and that makes, if there's one thing that makes a mess of a model, it's this. Copy and paste. Horrible method. Okay, and you start with the same thing. So let's say our fee of 30% isn't good. Let's make it to 40%. We want to increase our fees. Now, I did the same sort of thing as I did before. I computed a fixed level, and the fees this time come from the fixed level just like they did before. So the goal-seek method was kind of a good way to start this. And then we put in the computed fees, which again are the fee assumption times the debt. Shift Control right arrow, Shift Control 1. And then we have our difference. Okay, and what you can do to resolve this difference is you always can copy the computed into the fixed. Copy this, paste special to here. Okay, that's the first thing we have to do. Now, what we're going to do is let's make one more thing. Let's make a total difference here. And would you mind, if you do, tough, I'm going to move this over here and sum this one. Okay, now here, let's make what we're going to do is copy and paste this until this difference goes down to 0. And you're going to have to make a little iteration to go around this. So we're going to have to have a test that makes sure this goes down to 0. And we're just going to redo the copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste. So, are you ready? Why don't I'm going to do it without the macro at first, just one iteration, then we'll do it with the macro, and then we'll modify the macro. So, the step-by-step process in this one, let's just modify our oops, oh no. Let's modify our comment. Shift Control N. Okay, and in our model, if the way this one works, just to repeat, is we make copy the computed series, how's that, to the fixed series. That's our step 1. Okay. Step 2 is check the total difference. And step 3 is keep going, copying and pasting until the total difference equals 0. Alright? That's what we're doing. Now, if I okay, I said I'd do it by hand. Let's do it by hand one time. So we take the computed fees, copy and paste that to the fixed fees. But notice the difference didn't go to 0. So let's do that again. Oh, it still didn't go to 0. So let's do that again. Now that's why we make a macro around it, because we're keeping copying and pasting and copying and pasting until this goes down to 0. Let's put our fee back to 30%. Okay, and when we put our fee back to 30%, we have a bigger difference. That's why I did this. So this time we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to record a macro. Now to record a macro around this, here's why I put these in this cell. If we shade this and press Shift Control F3, Shift Control F3, we're going to name the ranges. That names this one fixed fees, this one computed fees, this difference, and then I'm going to name this one. I'm going to press Shift Control F3 again. This is the total difference. See that? Okay. And let's make a macro. I'm going to name this macro copy. Oh, okay. Paste. Is that okay? I think while we're doing this, I hope you can see the problems with this. When we make our data table and our goal seek, we'd have to rerun this whole. I'm copying the computing, paste special to the values. Am I multitasking? I press escape to get rid of the little things too. This, when we make the data table or the goal seek, that won't work anymore. Okay, now I'm going to stop the recording. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And then after I stop the recording, oh, it's 36 minutes already. Oh my God. Let's go into our developer and look at our macro. And I haven't gotten to the cool part yet even. Okay, so here's our basic macro. I'm not going to put all the bells and whistles. So the range that we're copying from is the computed fees. That was number 81. And then we don't have to do the selection to the right, and then the range we're copying to is the fixed fees. And we make the paste special, and this thing called application copy cut mode equals false, that turns off those little dots. So why don't we, if I press this one to run the macro, you can see that it did the copy and paste and made the total difference smaller. Now to make this into a copy and paste macro, what we do is we put while range, and here let's put total difference. How about not equal to 0? Now fancy people will say, oh, put a precision in there, count the number of iterations, show it on the bottom, and all that. You can do all of that, fine. You can make these macros really fancy and then think you're really good, and what you've really done is mess up your model, okay? And when we do this, because if you see it's just going around and around, and then it does that. Okay, and then we've got, if we put our fee up to 50%, we can just make this macro. Now here's what people do. They'll make a nice little, let's make a nice little something or other. What should we do? Which one should we have? How about this one? Okay. Like a nice little, God knows why that would be a circular reference. We could call this optimizing the model or something like that. And we press the one for copy and paste and press OK. And then we run the macro. Okay? We call this optimizing the model, something like that. Edit text. Alright, so that's the copy and paste method. Now this method has many problems. We're just going to say, because it's used all the time, I'm not going to say it should never be used. Okay, first of all, the model loses transparency. Can't spell that word. You have to make range names. Who cares about that? We'll just think. But it's here the data tables and sensitivity analysis do not work. Now I'm going to go and have to fix some of these things, and the goal seek also doesn't work. I don't think I have to show you that, but if the data table here doesn't work, if I would want to do a goal seek on this one, well, let's do the goal seek just to illustrate the problem. It probably is pretty obvious to you, but you put the goal seek, let's set that number to 0 by changing the debt ratio. Okay. When we do that, it looks like, oh no, you said the goal seek doesn't work, and it works. Well, here's the problem. The goal seek works, but now we have a difference. And then we'd have to rerun the goal seek to get the difference, and you'd have to put the goal seek inside your little optimization thing if you wanted to ever use the model for any analysis. And I thought that's the reason we make these models in the first place, is to do some analysis. So, oh man, is this video getting long, but that's, I don't know how to make it shorter. I want a comprehensive one, so you can just stop with the video and look at the file, I guess. The next, so for the next, what did I put? Shift Control N, right? Come on. Shift Control. Okay. I don't seem to be able to. Is my macros? Did I? Shift Control M takes it away, and Shift Control N leaves it. Okay. All right. Now let's put the next method. The next method, this would be the optimal method if we could do it. I'm going to copy this one more time. Okay. And our next method is a method where we no, is it? What time is it? I'm going to have to stop here sometime. This is going to be our algebraic. How do I spell it? I'm just going to call it method. And here's what we can do. We can write down a couple of formulas. Fees equal fee percent multiplied by the debt. Is that right? But the debt equals the total times the debt percent. I'll do it like that. I'll make it like that. And the total equals the construction plus the debt, plus the fees. Now, all we have to do is start substituting. It's not that difficult, is it? We can, where would you like to substitute? We could substitute the debt in, but maybe I'll substitute the total. So why don't we put debt equal construction plus fee, okay? And we better, around that, multiply that by the debt percent. And so a lot of times you can solve circular references like this, and unfortunately not every time. Maybe if you're really good at algebra, you can get a lot of this. And now let's would want, now I'm going to put that in to the fee model. So I'm going to substitute again. I probably should have done it differently. That's times. Notice I use the different things. Times construction plus fee times the debt percent. Is that all right? Did I do that correctly? I hope I did. Okay. So the fee, now what we'd want to do is just put fees on the other side of the equation. Let's expand this. Fee equals fee percent times construction plus, let's take this one out, plus, I'm gonna not be nervous about how long these videos are because probably nobody will ever watch them anyway. Plus fee percent like this. Okay, and then what we can do, let's just rearrange this. I should I've done this right now. This is substituting. And then we rearrange. Okay, I don't know if I put it in the right place. Fee minus fee times debt percent times fee percent equals fee percent times construction times construction. That's it, right? Right, I hope. Okay. So we put fee times 1 minus fee percent times debt percent equals the fee percent times the construction. And this should have been fee, whoops, this should have been a fee percent here. Alright, so far. And so we can say fee equals fee percent times construction, okay, divided by 1 minus fee percent times debt percent. Sorry about sometimes using that. And now we have our equation for the fees. That was a pain to do, but here's what we can do. Take all this fixed fee out. You don't want to do this anymore. Just simply put the fee percent up at the top, and I've got to be careful I don't screw anything up, times, oops, see, I did it already, F4, okay, times the construction, divided by 1 minus the fee percentage, which is up here, okay, times the debt percentage, which is the second one, which we press F4. Alright, and we copy that across. Okay, now we don't have any fixed fees here, although I suppose we can make the fixed fees equal to that. That's not really necessary. Computed fees are, why aren't the computed fees here? Okay, that was kind of useless, but I think let's look at our, to check this, I suppose we can go to our options and our iteration button. We don't really need to do that, but 134, hang on, fee percent, I think I did something wrong, shoot. Okay, what did I do should have been fee percent times the construction divided by 1 minus fee percent times debt percent. Okay, I made a mistake. When I wrote the algebra, I hope you caught this mistake. I should have had fee plus times construction times debt percent here, and the fee, this should have been fee, be consistent, debt percent. Sorry about that. Okay, maybe this shows you kind of one of the problems. You've got to get the algebra right. So this is fee times debt percent times construction, and then it's all the same. It all works just the same. Now in this case, the good news is the data what if analysis, goal seek, that will set that to 0 by changing the what did we want to change? The debt percent. Okay, press that in, and the algebra, we get 0. The other thing that happens is if we take this total debt and hang on. I'm sure this data table is just not copied, so let's make our data table and put a column in. Oops, there's a scroll. Column input is the debt to capital percentage, and we get our data table to work. So everything works. This is far superior to the other methods. The only kind of problem with this method is that it's pain, kind of a little pain, and if you have a really big, this was about as simple example as I can come up with. If you have a more complicated example, it's a little worse. So let's make our last method, and our last method is this thing that I've come up with, and I call this the isolated function with iteration. Okay, and on this one, we're going to write down these formulas, but we're going to make a function in these formulas. So this time, instead of the fee being this long formula, the fee is going to be, we're going to put these 3 formulas into a function and just go around. Well, it's not a good description what I did here, but let's go to developer macros. Well, I'll put it underneath here. Let's make a function and call it fees. And the function is going to have to read our construction, expenditure, it's going to have to read our debt percent, and it's going to have to read our fee percent. So the first real lesson about making one of these functions is anything you're going to use in the calculation you need to read in as a variable. That's indeed one of the problems. There's a limitation, unfortunately, on the number of characters you can read into a function. Now, somewhere at the bottom of the function we'll have to put fees. That's what we need to do. We haven't defined it yet, but that's the way a function works. Now let's write down some of our formulas. Total uses equal the fees plus the the construction. Now, here's a kind of another problem. You want to be descriptive with the variables, but it's a pain. If you don't spell them right, and you can guess that that's a mistake I make, then we'll have a problem. And then our debt equal total uses times the debt percent. Okay, and then finally our fees, which are down here, equal the fee percent times the debt. That's just the formulas we did. Now here's the big trick. You make an iteration now. How about you can make it, let's make it to 20. Now that's kind of silly because it'll iterate in probably 3 times. You can make a little test and see if the fee from the last go round is very different than this one. But next, so we just make a little function. That's a for loop. We just, you know, if you make if you're going to do any little bit of programming, or indeed any Excel work, I think knowing what a for and a next loop is one of the basic things. In the old days, everybody would, of course, have to use this. Now, if we go around and around, we really want to stop. We want to stop this iteration as soon as here I can put last fees equal fees. Okay, so after we're finished with the iteration, we define the last fees, and before we do this, we can put the difference equal the fees minus the last fees, and then we can put if the absolute value of the difference is less than 0.0001, then exit the function. Okay, I hope that works. I tell you, I've never tried that last thing. Okay, so let's try this. So let's put equal fees, and here's the big thing. When you write your own function, use that little f thing, and that's why we wanted it a little more descriptive. Okay, and I can see I made a mistake already. No, I didn't. That's okay. We're going to do this one by one. The construction expenditures we put here. The debt percentage, we'll go up to the top and get the debt to capital percentage. Press F4. And the fee percent, we'll do the same thing. You notice that you can put a little description here. So when we get advanced in another exercise, we'll show you how to do that. And press OK. And I think it did, just a minute. Okay, I was worried it didn't work, but it did work. So why don't we split the screen? Why don't we put this? Oops, why doesn't this work? Okay, let's put this here and go up to the top. And if I change the fee percent to debt percent to 60, change the fee percent to 30, well, what a bug, only 30%, then we get this answer. If we, this is 121, 243, and so forth. If I remember, I had left this iteration button on just so we could check things. It's the same thing as we left the iteration button on, but let's show you the advantage of this. If I want to make a goal seek, we go to data, what if analysis goal seek, we set that difference to 0 by changing the debt to capital ratio. Okay, I remember I put it on a crude iteration. the data table works. So everything works, and instead of writing all of these formulas like this and doing all this substitution and rearranging, all we had to do was to make a little function, and I'm going to clip it and put it onto into our spreadsheet here, and there's our function. We created our little function, and that solves the problem. And if you don't believe me, this function, in this case, it wasn't very much longer than our copy and paste macro. Indeed, had some simpler things than the copy and paste macro. You didn't have to put all your little precision crap and all that, although I guess you did here. And you can solve virtually, not virtually, any. I've not run into a circular reference I couldn't solve with this method. This was a simple method, and that is finally the end of this video. It's the longest video I've ever made. Goodbye.